Jackie de Crinis is back. We're so excited. And honestly, Jackie, like, I know I said this before, but I feel like even through a Zoom, just seeing your face, and this goes for and I'm sure like listeners know, because I also know some of you are actually talking to Jackie now and working with her, but I, I immediately feel a sense of peace
Oh,
and
thank you.
safety. And like, it's really, if I like this day has been so crazy. It's been
Hmm.
so insane, actually. And I feel this is the first moment I feel like I'm present. And I know it's because I'm looking at you and we're
Oh,
having a conversation. And I
love
feel like
it.
this is the way we've always been. You all know how I feel about Jackie. She's returning because we were talking about the Overthinker's Guide to Joy podcast the first time, and also just her me time and story and everything else. And she has now written a book and it's a handbook, which is something I want to talk to you about.
Yeah.
It's incredible. Um, I and she's here. We're going to talk about that, and we're going to talk about the book, and we're going to talk about all the things and dive into me time with one of the greatest people on planet Earth.
Oh, you are the best. You are the
I
best.
mean it. You know, I feel that way
I,
about you, but Jackie has had a roller coaster of a week. I
hmm
mean, not even a full week.
No, no.
Can I say?
Yeah,
Are you okay
absolutely.
that I share
Sure,
this?
sure,
That
sure,
like
sure.
her dog Blaze passed away suddenly on Saturday. We were just discussing, so there might be some a leftover of that coming into this podcast as well. And she released her book all in the same
Week.
wild
Yeah.
week. I How are you? How are you?
Uh,
Like, yeah.
as I've tried to articulate it, and I think I'm numb because when you lose your best friend, even if it's your best furry friend, it is excruciating. And, we talked about this. He was my shadow. So, like, he had a bed in my office. He was always sitting by me when I worked. There
Hmm.
you go. I see your furry bed too. When I took a shower, he sat at the base of the shower. When I went to the bathroom, I said, I haven't gone to the bathroom alone for 12 years because he won't follows me in. Um, I've not eaten a meal without him in my house. I mean, I do go out to dinner without him, but so he's not always out. But if I'm
Right.
in this house, he is literally at my heels for 12 straight years. And it is a very surreal experience to come home from this book, mini book tour trip, visiting friends and family and promoting the book and being on this unbelievable high of like it's here and I'm doing it and here's a copy and da 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 and then coming home with less than 12 hours notice that he had to be put to sleep because he had this congestive heart failure due to I guess a heart murmur that we were unaware of. So when I left he was fine and adorable and 10 pounds of white fluff and just the sweetest. Sad that I was leaving with a suitcase, but and then the night before I got home, my husband called me and he said he looks weird and he was rushed to the emergency room and his heart was enlarged and his lungs were filled with fluid and we had to make the decision to put him to sleep, which was excruciating because I wasn't due back for another 18 hours. So I came back to a house that was kind of silent and there's no pitter patter of these little clicking nails on the hardwood floors. And every time somebody comes to the door or I do anything, there's no barking, which I have to say, I don't miss the car alarm bark that he had, but I miss every other little ounce of him. And so while I'm getting the beginning of my first book reviews and accolades and people telling me they're buying it for their friends and their daughters and their sisters and their mothers, and I'm so grateful. And I'm so, like, I can't tell you the high to write your first book and to have somebody, one person, forget like more than one, but one person tell you it moved them or it
Mhm.
helped them. That is like, I hate to say it, I could die happy from that one note. And then to get dozens or hundreds of them is unbelievable. And then in the same breath, I had to announce the death of my little best friend who everyone knew because he was the mascot of one of my blogs and he's all
Yeah.
over my social media and everyone who has ever been to my house knows him. And the outpouring of love for that loss. So it's like this outpouring of love for accomplishing something and then an outpouring of love for loss in the same breath is it's like hard to describe.
Yeah, I can't I can't even begin to imagine the whatever that feeling is. I don't even know that there's a word for that kind of a feeling.
Well, I think I wrote yesterday that my heart is both full and broken. And I don't know how that can happen at the same time, but it can.
Yeah, it
It's
is.
full because people have been so loving about both things. One is grief and one is joy. And then so broken that he's not here.
Yeah.
But, talking to you before we got on the recording part of this podcast, just about the decision to put your dog to sleep when they are possibly at the end of life anyway, and to be able to hopefully give them comfort so that they're not struggling to breathe or in pain
Yeah.
is like a very powerful decision and not taken lightly by any means, but really, really struggled. And we talked about this. I really struggled with, did I make the right decision, or should I have left him in emergency care for 2 days, pumped full of this chemical to try and get the fluid out of his lungs in the hopes that he could come home and survive and then actually be maybe the same? I don't know.
Mhm. Mhm.
And you gave me such grace and kindness by saying, I think you did the right thing. And my three veterinarians, who two of them are my good friends, and one was the emergency one on call, all said that was the right decision. And that has given me some peace for sure.
Well, I know, I listening to you talk about like the pitter patter and the things. I always say like the firsts. That was the
Yeah.
hardest part for me was like all of the like firsts.
Yeah.
That was like someone coming to the door the first time or whatever. I Grief is wild, and these like furry creatures of love truly are our extension. They're our loved ones. They are our
Yes,
loved ones. So
definitely.
I put the same grief on that. I think one of the things that I felt after when Peanut passed in a similar way, and why I know that if I can just be the non-expert, the non-veterinarian like person that is kind of witnessed what I think they're saying or what they're responding to, and that you did the
Mhm.
right thing. I
Mhm.
I sort of witnessed the play out, and
Mhm.
I don't wish that. I have said this a million times. I don't wish that on anybody, and
Mhm.
I know you did the right thing. Like I know that, but I don't know. I had this thing, and I'm feel differently about it now, but at the time, I almost felt like I had to hide it a little bit. Like I almost felt like the pain
Mhm.
I was in was so awful, and
Mhm.
I mean, it was just like, something I had never experienced before, and I remember feeling this thing of having to be like, I know she was my dog. Like, I almost had to, like, put it in some
Mhm.
category for people to, like, understand that, like,
Mhm.
and then I just kinda stopped talking about it for a little while because
Mhm.
I felt really kind of alone in the level of grief that I was in. But now, and it had me sort of look around, and I thought about all of the people that are walking around on a daily basis carrying
Mhm.
some level of grief in
Mhm.
some way, that
Mhm.
we learn. I don't know, for me, I kind of came to the conclusion that I time it's not that time heals or takes it away. We just are different from
Yes.
that. So it just becomes
Yes.
a part of us.
It becomes a part.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so when people, anyway, and we don't, obviously have to do the grief podcast, but I
Well, I'm
definitely
actually going to do one in a few weeks on the Overthinker's Guide to Joy. I'm going to do one because I want to. It's such an important subject because it does show up in so many different ways, and it's not always death. Um,
no, no.
Grief can come in like, and I really want to explore that in depth. Not today, but I'm going to. That grief can come in so many different forms, and just because sometimes it's easier when something dies to be able to share your grief because it's concrete and people think that's relatable. Like to
Yeah.
say, God forbid, my dog died or my sister passed or something like that, God forbid. But people can relate to that. But if you're grieving something that is less tangible,
Mm.
the loss of a job, the loss of a friendship,
Oh,
the
yeah.
loss of
Yeah.
income, the
Yeah.
loss of your wellness, like not being able to do something that you once loved.
Yeah.
Any of those things are still grief, a heartbreak, a breakup. They don't have to be dead or divorced. Like, it's just a broken heart. And so it's so important not to judge grief, not
Yeah.
someone else's, but especially not your own.
Yeah.
Like, to not diminish it or belittle it.
Yeah.
Like, it is yours. And by the way, it's okay also to lose things and not grieve. Like,
Yeah.
it's okay when
Yeah.
somebody lives. I was having this conversation with a friend of mine. When somebody lives a whole long, beautiful life and they die peacefully, or somebody lives a whole long, beautiful life and then they're very, 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 very sick at the end and they're suffering.
Mhm.
Death in that case, in either of those scenarios, is can be beautiful because they are out of pain.
Yep.
They are done with struggle. And they've lived the beautiful part of their life. They're,
Yeah.
let's say 90 or 100 years, whatever is appropriate,
Yeah.
whatever people perceive as long. I think 90-ish
Yeah.
is about long.
Yeah.
And it's okay to not grieve the loss. You could grieve the loss of the fact that they were once young and then vital and communicative. That you could grieve, but it's okay to celebrate that they're at peace.
I'm excited for this part of your podcast because I do think I don't think we talk about grief in that way or
Mm,
enough in
mm-mm.
all the ways, like of what
Agreed.
and what you're talking about, like job ending, change, just in general, whatever
Mhm.
that is, good and bad, the ending of something or whatever. I, a broken heart is a broken heart. And that can come in so many. I can't, I personally cannot wait for that. Are you going to do a series
On
of
grief?
them? Yeah.
Ooh, I don't know. I hadn't thought. I was just going to talk about
But
it, but
you just
maybe
covered
a
so much.
series might be
Yeah.
better.
Anyway, I don't know. I was like,
I
oh,
love
you
that.
covered so
I'll
many
think
topics.
about
I'm
it.
like, I will listen to all, but transitioning or maybe not, maybe
Yes.
this is all just sort of the part of the same conversation. But
Yeah.
your first off, the Overthinker's Guide to Joy, which we've talked about, we know. In case you all don't, Jackie is a life coach.
Mhm.
Is the title?
Mhm.
Yeah. And Jackie worked with us on psych. I know many of you who listen are psych fans, worked with us on psych for many, many years. She was at USA. She was our like executive, but she was so much, I said this all before, but she was so much more than that. Like you always just had a different approach in a different way and nurturing. You saw every project not just as like a thing that we could put on that might be a hit, that might be, you were like, you could see every seed, you cared about how we were doing. You would
Yeah.
come to set and like come and make eye contact with me and be like, but how are you?
Yeah.
Like it's
Well, I
not
love
about
you guys. You have to know, I loved you guys. Like, just
we
love that writing staff, love that cast, love that production, love that show, love you. Like, that is so heartfelt because you guys made it that way to me.
oh
Because not everybody's like that. Not everybody lets you in, particularly when you're the suit. I mean, that was my old career. Like,
yeah,
that was my
yeah.
job. And they see the suit as the antagonist. Oh, they're going to give us notes. Oh, they're going to cut our budget. Oh, they're going to cancel our show or whatever they see the
Mm.
suit as. And you guys were just delicious and fun and
Oh my
playful
God,
and
because
hilarious. And
you knew that from the very beginning. We'd be like, Jackie's coming this week. And I'd be like, oh, I would get so excited because I would be like, oh, I have this like relationship thing I want to talk to her about. Like that was what I was more excited about. I was like, I really want her take on this thing. Anyway, Jackie, so
yeah.
along with your podcast
Mhm.
and blog, I want to know. So you wrote a book, but not just a book, like a handbook, like a guide. And when did you know? Was this always a part of the plan?
I always wanted to write a book, like since I was little. And I always wanted to write a book about anxiety and managing anxiety. And I didn't know the word overthinking because that's more of a like a zeitgeisty word right now. But um, I probably always had low level anxiety, like even as a little girl. Like I was just hyper vigilant, and it served me very well. I mean, I don't say that to like for people to feel sorry for me. I That was sort of like my rocket fuel for being a good student and a good girl and like accomplishing a lot was I just used my anxiety and channeled it into being very, very productive. And that's a pretty good operating manual, like to get through school and college and even marriage. But then what happens is I was talking about this with somebody recently. It starts to become a beast of burden. So what seems like jet fuel for productivity, yay for productivity, eventually becomes like too many bricks without
Mhm.
any rebar, without any
Yeah,
infrastructure. And
right.
eventually the tonnage, meaning the productivity itself, or the I gotta do, I gotta build, I gotta go, I gotta accomplish, 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 eventually will lead to burnout. So it'll either lead to physical burnout or emotional burnout or mental burnout. And my my low level anxiety, my highly productive anxiety that I sort of was proud of because I thought it got me good places. Not so much. And I talk about it in the book. At 40 years old, after the birth of my third child and my second husband, I went back to work at USA, and a very good job, but a job with too much tonnage, meaning the volume was just too high. I started having my first panic attacks where I just couldn't breathe because I was overworked and, as my husband loves to say, over the speed limit, like
Mm,
in every possible way. So everything was too much. It was too many scripts, too many tapes, too many
yeah.
conversations, too many emails, too much responsibility at home, too much, too much, too much. And it finally showed up in my body, not just as a headache or muscle tension like the rest of the world. It showed up as like, I can't catch my breath.
Wow.
And so I went to, I mean, I was always going to doctors, right? In between, like that's what I would do on my lunch hours if I didn't have a business meeting. I was like, I'll go to the acupuncturist today. I'll go to the chiropractor today. I'll go to the
Mhm.
um, therapist today. Whatever I could do to kind of keep the stuffing in the scarecrow to
Yeah.
and I went to the doctor and they ran all these tests like as an annual physical and they're like, "Oh my god, you're in amazing health. Look at how fantastic you are." And I was like, "Well, thank you. Thanks."
Right.
And they're like, "Do you have any questions?" I'm like, "Yeah, I can't breathe." And they're like,
Yeah.
"What?" I'm like, "I can't breathe and I think something's caught in my throat." And they're like, so they're like looking at the charts, like, did we did we do a lung x-ray? And did anybody look down her throat? And they're like, okay, well, there's nothing in your throat. That's for sure. And there's nothing wrong with your lungs. I'm like, okay, I can't catch my breath. And
Mm.
then we sort of figured out that it was anxiety. And so that became sort of my mission for at 40, which is like midlife-ish, to figure out like why is it now showing up to the point where I
Mhm.
can't catch my breath?
Mhm.
Metaphoric, literal.
Yeah. I one of the things you say quite a bit or you talk about, especially in the like beginning of the book, is the difference between like surviving your life
Mhm.
and enjoying
Mhm.
your life. And
Mhm.
it hit me a few times of like, huh, how do I know? Like, what, how would I know? Because I actually do feel like I've been in a little bit of a survive. I'm just coming to this,
Mhm.
but I've been in it a while
Mhm.
and experiencing kind of like what you were talking about. But I was like, other than obviously you're having a physical, it's manifesting in a physical way.
Mm.
Like even to somebody listening right now, that like, how do you stop and go, wait a second? Like, I mean, that's what the handbook is about because you go
That's
on
what
to sort of
yeah,
talk about
that's what the
it.
book is about. I mean, the book
Yeah.
is basically how to take stock and do daily habits. First of all, try and develop daily habits where you are taking time for yourself. This is so perfect and why I called you about me time
Me
because
time. Yeah.
me time is about taking the pause for you. And it doesn't mean stopping. You can still do all your things that you like to do,
Yeah.
but being mindful in them, right?
Yeah.
So if you love to go out and stay out late and dance and all the things, and that's your life, then do that, but do it mindfully, right?
Yeah.
Don't do it because you feel like you have to or you're covering up for something else. And if you like staying home and reading books and snuggling with your pets or your kids or whatever, like do that. And or if you like both, do both. But it's all about developing good daily habits, which is something I had to do in my very, very busy executive job. And then when I moved to Maui many years ago, and ultimately when I became a life coach almost 6 years ago, I had to walk the walk and talk the talk. In other words, I had to have an operating manual in which I live by, but also could prescribe for people who, whether they're high powered executives or busy actors like yourself, or stay at home moms who are just overwrought with children and responsibilities and carpools, that this book could speak to anybody, a CEO or a single mother, because we all feel stress. And it's really simple tasks that you just start doing so that you have agency over your life and you don't feel like your life is running you, but you're running your own show. So
That
that's the book.
I don't want to like give, I'm like,
You
spoiler
can
alert,
say whatever.
but
No, it doesn't matter.
because I also, though, I loved that the steps you kind of lay out, you call home,
Yes.
which for me, that word alone just
Yeah.
puts some, like, makes me feel this kind of, I think at one point you even talk about putting your hand on your heart. Like there's an
Yeah. There's a
exercise of like
meditation.
a
Yeah.
meditate. Yeah. That I like those words when you started and you were like, I call it home. And I was like, oh my God, this is already, it
Yeah.
already feel, and it's not 4,000 overwhelming stuff. You also talk about that, how you were like, you love the self-help aisle, but at the same time, it was like not necessarily practical and not necessarily like a handbook.
Right.
You're being told a lot of things and all those very helpful, all of
Great.
those
Oh,
things. Yeah.
amazing.
Yeah.
Amazing. Amazing.
Yeah.
Yes.
But a guide that is like, and it's not, um, that's what I'm even just the little bits as you stuff I didn't know. So first off, you talk about like hydration.
Yeah.
I don't think I've ever read a self-help book that talked about how important and also like how being dehydrated can even be the cause or trigger for anxiety and depression and these things.
Yes.
Like
Yes.
people don't know that. I didn't
Yeah.
know that.
Yeah.
I did not think that was gonna be the H. I didn't know what the H was gonna be, but I was not expecting hydration. Um, but it's like anyway, so I really was, anyway, you can talk more about that, but I was like, what a thing that we hear all the time, drink more water, but not necessarily the why, not
Mhm.
that what it's doing for us on like an actual, like an emotional level,
Yes,
to
yes,
have
and a
cellular
cellular
level.
level.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, and again, so what I am a little bit of a science nerd. I love science. I love neuroscience. I love physiology. I love all the things. But I wanted a book where if you never were on any kind of healthy eating regimen, or you never exercised, or you never did anything for your body, or never had a moment of mindfulness or meditation, that you could read this book and very incrementally introduce really simple concepts that don't cost a lot of money. That was the other thing, like coaching is a luxury. And I understand that. Like to have a private life coach is
Mhm.
like having a psychiatrist or a private trainer or and I didn't want the knowledge that I had or the teaching tools that I had to be only for privilege, right? I mean, yes, I make a living as a private coach. I'm not going to deny that that's a privilege to only so many, but the podcast is free and the book is under $20 and the
I
Kindle is
had that
even
thought. I was
less.
like, "She's giving away a lot of her tips and
That's
tools in this
fine.
book."
It's fine because I want the access for what I've learned and studied and practice and preach to be available to anyone who has, I guess, an iPhone, because you probably need that for the podcast, or you need some kind of device for audio. But that for $17, you could have a paperback book, and it's virtually everything I coach on, and
That's
maybe
such a
not
beautiful
everything,
thing.
but like a lot,
Yeah. Yeah.
and that would be reasonable
Yeah.
for anyone, or that they could give it as a gift for somebody who maybe isn't. interested in having coaching or
Oh, this is my, and to everyone listening, like you have your gift for everyone like this holiday season because it's really for everyone.
I hope so. I mean,
Yeah.
it's written for anyone. I
Right.
wouldn't say it's
Yes.
written to everyone, but it's written for anyone, and it's written for anyone who's open to feeling less anxious and kind of getting over themselves. And by the way, I don't write this from a high horse or an ivory tower. I write this from being in the trenches with anxiety and I wouldn't say a lot of depression, but certainly melancholy.
Mhm.
And the book talks a little bit about where that was
Mhm.
created. So it's with great self awareness and also compassion that I offer these tools, not from some kind of laboratory. You
Yeah.
know?
One of my favorite I want to get the quote right about not you can start over, you can start today, you can start at any point in your
Yeah,
life. It was so inspiring to hear that
yeah. It's
because
never too late is
it's
my
never
ex
too late.
it's never
Exactly.
too late to do anything.
Yeah.
Yeah,
You had mentioned you were like, I will probably get the ages wrong, but I know you said, and at 60, I wrote a book. Like you can
yeah,
do, and that's why I was like, is this always been a thing that you
yeah,
have wanted? And you have, it sounds like since you were little, but like
yeah,
you did it
yeah, yeah,
and and it's here and you're sharing it with everybody in your story because you want to help people, but it's a genuine like um for me I was like I feel like I'm experiencing I kind of hit where you were when you said you started to be like, well, something must be wrong. I can't tell you how many times over this last year I was like, oh, something is I need to see someone about this. Or I
mhm,
need to like over the last like couple of years. And I didn't realize how much um,
mhm,
the spinning thoughts and like the
mhm,
spinning and how much I was fixating and how much I like this is all it's like hit a little point for me, which is why I'm doing my podcast. It's also part of doing me time is my me time because it helps me sort of
yes,
slow down and
yes,
think and be present and kind of come back to myself even a little bit. So it sort of serves that purpose because I have found myself sort of, um, I don't know, in the overthinking
yeah.
and the
I
survival.
think it's one of the most common things of all the people that I coach is
Right.
that overthinking, people pleasing, and perfectionism, that holy trinity of that
Yeah.
dynamic. Women more so than men. Not to say that men don't suffer from anxiety, depression, overthinking, all the things. They do, 100%. But women, because of all kinds of other extenuating circumstances, everything from hormones to biological clocks
Yeah.
to patriarchy to societal pressure to take care of others, we tend to do that more than men.
Right. I feel like we have to think ahead, hence the overthinking, but
Mm,
almost to the, I mean, without getting like too in the weeds on that, the expectations, I think, of women, whether it's behavior, whether it's like, as you like letting someone down or
yes.
having, the pleaser, which I feel like we are all is in us in some way, obviously some of us more than others. So there's this like playing out that I have a tendency to do of circumstances
Hmm.
that paralyze me around having to deliver bad news or let someone down or like,
Hmm.
be the bad guy. And that is those are the things that maybe you talk about in even the spinning part of the book that, I fixate on that.
Yeah.
Sometimes it will paralyze me to the point that I will not do that thing because I
Right.
would rather suffer
Right.
instead of set the boundary I might need to set because of how I might be viewed in that way. Like I'm coming to terms with some of that now, obviously. But yeah.
And just practicing, first of all, I want to acknowledge you for the self awareness of that, just being able to see that pattern in yourself, say
Oh,
it out loud,
yeah.
share with others is so liberating. You have no idea what a gift that is to hear for your listeners who are like, yeah, that's me too. I do that too. And it's so comforting for other people to hear we all have the same secrets. I mean, we don't have the same circumstances or upbringings or challenges, but we all have the same emotional secrets. And that
Mm.
beast of burden of I have this bad news, or I would have to say no, or I'd have to reject them. I would rather not do that or have somebody dislike me. I'll just suffer in silence myself. And there's a chapter in the book about asking for help, which I'm terrible at and always was. Um, and I had this therapist decades ago who said to me, "You have to start practicing asking for help." And I'm like, "Oh no, because I'll burden other people, or they'll say no, or then I'll feel worse because I'll be rejected." And she said, "That's okay. There's
Mm.
discomfort in that." And how I recommend every single thing in the book is to practice. And so if you're uncomfortable giving bad news or breaking up with somebody or saying, no, thank you, I don't want a second date, or I can't do your movie, or
Or this
whatever,
friendship feels uncomfortable. Like, it could be anything. Like, yeah,
anything.
because I know you just did an adult friendship, yes, as well. Like,
I did. I just did
yeah.
an episode on adult friendship. Whatever it is that feels awkward to have to say, or again, set the boundary, beautifully said, you just have to practice a little. You just have to start doing a little bit every day. You don't have to go from 0 to 100. You don't have to go from being the perfect people pleasing everything good girl to, you've always been a horrible human being and now we're no longer friends. Like that's a big
Mhm.
but you can start with little things. Like when your friends change plans 3 times and you've moved your whole calendar around and you're like the 4th time and they're like, "Well, can we meet for lunch next week?" And blah, 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 blah. You could say, "No."
Mhm. Yeah.
No, I moved my calendar 3 times and I'm not gonna do that. Or that doesn't work for me.
This is what I love about the book. It is it's such an it's I can't even tell you all, like, it's they are simple steps. They're majorly life-changing, but this is what, you talk about. I always talk about how sometimes I get overwhelmed by step 30, I don't even take step 1,
Yes. This is
and
all about
you
step 1.
this is step 1. It's like step
All
1,
of
even
it.
in your day from, like, she talks about, like, just even waking up and making your bed. Just
Yeah.
making a point to
That's
do
it.
that every day.
That's it.
Like, and you think about it, I've been doing this. I mean, I've been
Good.
traveling a little bit, but I've actually, like, I think I got out of practice on a few things, but I just did I did the
Oh,
transcendental meditation
love
course
it.
over my
Yes.
birthday, yeah. So I've been
Love it.
trying to, and I got out of it for just a little bit, and I was thinking, like, and I when as I was actually, listening and reading your book.
Uh-huh.
So because it's available on Audible as well. But the handbook part of it is so important, so you need the hard copy as well. I realized I was listening to you even just talk about the meditation, and you said, the thing is if you feel like you don't have even 10 minutes, you
Yeah.
probably need 20. Like,
Right.
that's, like,
Yeah.
what would yeah.
Yeah.
And I was like, "Oh, the things that they're almost like it's almost like starting to form a habit over, like, there's, like, a control. It's sort of like you were saying, like, you driving your life versus your life driving you. But
Yeah.
it's not as I feel like we all think of, like, these things to undo, or, like, it's gonna take so much therapy, and it's gonna take, and all that is great. Like, you need
Yeah. Oh,
all of
sure.
that.
Love it.
But the day to day
Yeah.
is what we have to live in.
Yeah.
Like, you're not gonna anyway, so I that's what I love and loved about this book is how you just mentioned it can be simple, even the friends who are canceling, and it's like that was the thing that stuck out, to me about, like, anyone can take these little steps, but they're
Yeah.
transformative. They transform your day,
Yeah.
which eventually becomes,
Yeah, and I think that's the piece I think we talked about in the last time I was on your podcast, which is the self-care piece, is how you develop the strength to then show up in the world and be able to set boundaries. Like it starts with you, not other people.
yeah.
One of the things I always tell clients, because I have a lot of clients who are single, and they'll say, "Well, I just feel like if if I meet the right person and they love me, I'll feel whole. And I always want to say, you will absolutely meet the right person if you set that intention. That's a given. But you have to every day not work on somebody else loving you. You have
Mm.
to work on you loving you. And that's the self care piece. And when you do that, then the person shows up because you're radiating the lovability by self love and self compassion.
Yeah. Oh, I love that.
Yeah.
Because then you attract the right person.
Yeah. Well, because you don't want to attract another half.
Right,
You want to be
exactly.
whole and you want to attract another whole.
Right. That what is the oh, you complete me?
Yeah.
The very romantic line.
Yeah,
Don't get
it
me
is.
wrong.
It
Beautiful,
is so
beautiful.
lovely.
But I'm with you. I see that. I feel it and I see it now in myself and in relationships, but also I think maybe with age as well, but I feel like that idea of meeting the other half is
Yeah.
like that's it's a lot of pressure to put on somebody else too,
It is.
to be like,
Yeah.
you're you're whole, right?
Yeah.
Yeah,
And it's also just too much to give away.
absolutely. Yeah.
Like give your heart to somebody. That's beautiful, but you want to be grounded. You want to feel like you have, and I think you do a gorgeous job of this because I think you're already so mindful and so intuitive and so soulful, and you practice such good self-care in just everything about you is so elegant and lovely.
Oh my God, Jackie, thank you. Thank
It
you.
is
I
so true. It is so true. You're
uh,
just like, I've said this 1,000 times. You're like sunshine that walks through the door.
oh
When you
my
come
God,
through the door, it's just like this, oh, the sun is out today. That's what it
Jackie,
feels like.
that's really nice. Thank you. I don't Thank you. I have that means a lot. And look, I do I think work really hard at that part, the self-care part. And not that it's like should be so efforted. I don't mean that, but
Mm-mm.
I have come to know myself because I didn't. So, speaking of like what you were talking about, like and we talked about this on psych as well, because I
Mm.
was diagnosed with celiac when I was 31. So that would have been season 6, or season 6 or season 7. And I was so like, I was obviously at the high of psych and that time in my life, and what an era, and oh my God. But I wasn't at all taking care of myself. I didn't
Yeah.
know how. I didn't
Yeah.
know what that would even mean or look like. Not because I was just doing for everybody else or any of that. I just didn't, I was just unaware of what that was. And I was being told by a lot of people, like, you're oh, you would be so good at this, or you should do this, or you all should be at this point in your relationship that you're taking this step. There were all these like shoulds of
Mm-hmm.
who that I kind of got caught up in that. And I really,
Mm-hmm.
really didn't, as in the pleasing of everybody else, get to know myself. And I think I've worked really hard post divorce, post, all of that to try to take care of that part of me a little bit. And it's been harder over the last couple of years. Is sort of like another wave of it. But I really appreciate you saying that. And
Yeah.
I
Well, and then you got slammed with the pandemic and a writer's strike, and an unprecedented writers and actors strike. So we had a triple whammy for people in the entertainment business.
yeah.
Um, that it was like a domino of like, wait, as somebody said, I didn't see that on my bingo card this year.
Mm.
And it was 2020, 2022, 2023. And it's just barely starting to recover. And I think you did an amazing job. I mean, you
Thanks,
created 2
Jackie.
podcasts
Thank
and
you.
you continue to work and you look as radiant and beautiful as you did a decade ago. I mean, it's just all of the things.
Thanks,
So
Jackie. This is about you and your book. This book is
no,
about
it's about me time.
it is about me time. But thank you. Yeah, it's funny, I look at all of that, and to be honest with you, the hardest part of the last few years
Mm,
was Peanut, was losing Peanut.
mm,
Like that just for me, and yes, it's been really hard, and it has been like
mm.
before that moment, it was what is industry, definitely COVID, all of that, because it was sort of on, it was the end of 21 that she passed, but um
Mm.
there was a ton, all of that anxiety, and that was the thing
Yeah.
that really, yeah, it took a long time to recover from that one. But,
Yeah.
but yeah, I feel, and I feel like in a weird way, to be honest, oh God, now I'm like in my talking about my grief or my me time, but in a weird way, I felt like that was such a turning point, which is why on me time I talk about with people moments of impact, because
Mhm.
there's like these things that happen to us, I feel like in our
Mhm.
lives that come out of nowhere, or maybe we even have one. It doesn't matter. When they happen, we are changed. You are
Mhm.
changed. You are not who you were before, and
Mhm.
you're getting to know
Mhm.
a new version of yourself.
Mhm.
And
Mhm.
that was like sort of the point of the podcast. And that is, it's taken a while, but I wish I had your book um then because
It's funny,
I
I
was
say that I wish I had my book when I was 25.
I so and probably a lot of the majority of, I think, the listeners I have are actually, I believe most of you are in that sort of 20s to 30s range, and I'm
Oh, I
thinking
didn't
like
know that. I figured they were, like, in
all
their 30s
over.
and 40s and 50s, actually.
Oh, for sure. They're there too. But I feel like I would say, so I don't want to take away from the list, but I feel like the people I hear from the most
Oh,
are a lot
younger,
of,
younger. Oh, that's
20s,
interesting. I would not have known that. Just because Psych is an
20s and
old
30s.
show, I mean, it came out a long time ago is what I mean.
Yeah.
So I assume that it's people who followed Psych and then followed you and then, kept going, like more Maggie, more Maggie. I didn't realize that because young people probably weren't even 20 somethings. Yeah, they would have
They've
been like
come
little
to it later.
kids. Oh, they
Jackie,
came to it later.
it's
Okay.
crazy.
Okay.
There's
Okay.
this like,
Resurgence.
yes, Peacock and Netflix so Netflix, and then when Peacock
Okay.
launched and Psych came back, I don't know what's happened, but there is a whole new
Oh,
generation
wow. Oh,
watching the
wow.
show. And we know this because of our conventions that we go to, Tim and I, and we do the live shows. Like
Younger
uh,
people there.
and a lot of parents who are like watching it with their teenage kids now who
Oh,
watched
that's
it
so sweet.
originally. It's
Yeah.
These conventions are the sweetest, most wholesome things. I love them so much. But anyway, the point of all of that was that I wish I had your book, because I feel like my experience with self-help, especially during those years, was more around, obviously talk therapy, great, all of that, but like not that it was impractical, but I don't know that I ever read something that was just like, just take this step, then just take this step,
Yeah.
and just then observe yourself here. And
Yeah.
then maybe like it's it's so it's it feels so practical and simple, and yet it's the all of the steps that I would skip because I was trying to get to the end
Yeah.
step. And that's what you're talking about, which is the self-care part when, you anyway, I'm doing all of the talking,
I
Jackie.
love it. I
But
love
I
it because
also
I
love
love
it.
the passion and I love the that it's resonating because that was the idea was to write this book, make it for anyone, not everyone, but
I said
anyone.
anyone. Yeah,
Yeah.
everyone, right.
And then that it would be easy. And
Right.
and it's not all the tools are for everyone. They're not intended to be. It's like pick the ones you like. It's a
That's what I love
toolbox.
about it. It's
It's a
almost like,
toolbox.
yeah, it's a toolbox, and you pick the tools that work for you. You
Right.
mentioned even like an exercise. It could be a million different things. You can
Yeah.
get your water in a million different ways. You can get your but like figure out what that is for you.
For you. Yeah,
Right.
there's nothing prescriptive about it.
Right.
And I like that. I like the idea of being able to choose your tools and that nothing is one size fits all.
Right.
I don't believe that. And I just love that this is all resonating for you and you're doing a much better job talking about it than I could. I
No,
love it.
stop. But I
No, it's
well,
great.
also I just know I know you, and I know your heart. I know your heart, and I know your story, which is why I feel like I'm so happy you tell that part in the beginning of the book. I know you get to steps
Mhm.
and you get to all of that, but it's also like
Mhm.
who this person is that is talking to you is one of the greatest people and
Mhm.
on the planet. Like Jackie,
So
everyone
sweet.
who knows, it's true. Like I was so sad to miss I missed a dinner while I was in New York, and I was like, I'm that I first off, that whole crew is just
Yeah.
the greatest.
Hilarious.
Yeah, but I was really sad mostly to miss you. But I get to see you now, which is great.
I know. It's the best.
So what else would you like to tell listeners about the book, and also we'll get to like where they can find it and find you and all of
Yeah,
that.
I
But
mean,
I
that's really it. So to find me, and that my website houses the ability to reach me if they are interested in being a client, or if they just want to join my newsletter, if they want to listen to my podcast, if they want to buy the book. It's like all there in one place, which is just my name, JackieDeCrinis.com, JackieDecris.com. And that's kind of where everything lives. So like
okay,
all
got
the
it.
things. But to buy the book, they can buy it on Amazon.com. They can buy it on BarnesandNoble.com. They can buy it or listen to it on Audible. And then it's available paperback or Kindle. So, I mean, or ebook. So
Okay.
all the things. And
Jackie also, I love Jackie's voice so much, and she reads the book on Audible. So you get to hear her voice tell her story, which I think is really, really, really important.
sweet. Thank
It's
you.
great. I do. I love it.
And then the only thing I ask is that if people like it, share it with a friend, leave a review on Amazon so other people can find it, because first time authors, it's really hard to promote a book because you don't have any traction, you don't have any name recognition yet, and all the things. So the best way for other people to find it is tell a friend or leave a review on Amazon or Audible.
This is
That's,
so major. You wrote a book
I wrote a book.
and it's
Yeah.
out, and
Yeah.
we're like, it's so exciting. It's so wonderful. It's so inspiring. You are like, you do walk your talk. You do, yes, walk your talk.
Yeah.
Jackie is the real deal. And this book is really wonderful. So I encourage everyone and anyone to check out Jackie's book, to get Jackie's book, to follow these anybody who's having, as you just mentioned, like it's like stress. You just want to feel less anxious in this world, which, my God, we're so, I feel like the anxiety, Jackie, I don't know, and I'll get on a
Yeah.
whole other tangent, but like maybe it's since COVID, maybe I'm just more aware of it now. I don't know.
Yeah.
I feel like we're off the charts.
I think so much of that is the immediacy of news and, unfortunately, social media, like
Yeah.
whether it's Twitter, Instagram, TikTok, Facebook, whatever. I think that that's what's creating more and more is
Yeah.
we're just bombarded by information all the time.
Yeah.
And I don't talk a lot about that in the book, but something I will if I write another, which is like giving yourself some unplugged time is
Mm.
really important. Not just me time, which is beautiful, but
No, but disconnect.
disconnect. Just for even just like meditation, I guess, speaks to that, because if you're
That's what it is for
meditating,
me. Yeah.
you're quiet, or you're listening to, I do use my phone to meditate because I listen to guided meditations, but I'm not doing anything else. I'm not playing games. I'm not talking on the phone. I'm not texting. I'm not emailing. I'm just listening to the meditation. Taking time in nature and keeping your phone like on off is
Yeah.
good. But just, I think just having a break from technology
I think that is your next book.
for a few minutes a day,
I think we
at
need that one
least.
too. Yeah. But
Yeah.
I agree with you. I'm big on that electronic thing.
But
And I
I
don't.
love that you started transcendental meditation. That's how I started my meditation practice. And that was the beginning of me finding mindfulness and really taking that time to sit with my own thoughts and not be scared of them.
Yeah. Because I can feel it. I
Oh,
was like,
yeah.
oh, what are all these feelings that are coming? Oh, okay. Not that you're like aware of it, but I definitely was like, oh, I can almost feel like the anxiety finding its way out a little bit while I'm meditating and like what my body goes through. But anyway, that's another pod. Jackie, I could talk about a series. I literally could just talk to you
That's what we
forever.
should do. We should do our podcast together because you don't
We
have enough.
Should. Oh my God. And now,
How fun would that be?
I'm so down, by the way. Like,
I would
like
love that.
me too. And
Oh, maybe we
should we talk
okay.
about this?
Yeah.
Let's talk about it.
Yeah. Let's talk about a series of podcasts together.
I'm so in.
You.
Everyone, this book, I love this book. I love this human, and you will too. Just you'll see it's so it's practical. It's like one step at a time. And anyone in your life that is dealing with any of this anxiety that we all are dealing with right now, I cannot stress enough, like for yourself, but also the greatest gift as we are entering the
Thank
holidays. You're
you.
done.
Thank
Anyway,
you.
so that's what I
Okay.
got to say. Love you,
Thank you.
Jackie.
Love
Okay.
you.